Hello lovelies and welcome back to Interpretation of Beauty. This is a channel dedicated to knowledge and education through skincare and all aspects of beauty. So today I thought we'd do a little bit of an intro to the skin. Primarily what I've been talking about on this channel so far is skin, and just so we know what the layers of our skin are, maybe some of the therapist jargon that we use, and just so you have a little bit more understanding. It's the largest organ in the body, so it's covers about 20 square feet, which is a lot. Skin is made up of 3 different layers. Technically more than that, but the main layers are your epidermis, which is your outside area that you can see on the skin, your dermis, which is the layer below, and then your subcutaneous level. The skin's main reason for functioning is to protect us from the outside world. It is waterproof to prevent us getting soaked and not being able to dry out like a piece of cloth. It helps regulate body temperature because it contains your pores that you sweat from, and it also has our nerve receptors in it, so it allows us the physical sensation of touch. It's brilliant because we can tell if things are hot, not to touch them and burn ourselves and damage our skin. We can tell if things are cold, or if we're cold, to prevent hypothermia and tell us that we need to heat up. The epidermis is the top layer of the skin. It itself contains stratified squamous epithelium, which basically just means it itself contains layers of cells. There are 5 main layers we talk about in skincare. You've got your stratum corneum, which is on the top. This is your waterproof layer. It has all the dead skin cells in it. All of these cells are fully keratinized, which means they are dead. They are filled with keratin, and that is what we touch every day when we're touching. That's the area we exfoliate off as well to reveal the more hydrated cells underneath. When a cell is fully keratinized, it does become sort of older and crispier, which is why we can find if we're not exfoliating that often, we do have that sort of rougher texture on the skin. Our basal layer, also known as our stratum germinativum layer, is where all of the growing takes place. So that's where your skin cells divide and they push up new skin cells. So when we're talking about regulating the amount of dead skin cells on the surface layer, what we're talking about is speeding up that cell division process down on that layer to make sure there's not as many cells dead on the skin. Keratinocytes are the main cell found in this area, and this is what puts keratin into our other cells. We have Merkel cells, which are responsible for our light touch sensation, so we find them more in areas like the fingertips. I could go into it, but it's basically they help send off the synapses to the nerve cells to tell us that we're touching things. Your melanocytes, which produce melanin in the skin, they are the ones that release melanin into the cells on this layer, which creates the pigment in our skin, which protects us from UV rays. And Langerhans cells, they are basically your immune system. They fight off microbes, they produce antigens when there's an infection. Your epidermis has no blood vessels in it, which is why you are able to get a safety pin or a needle and you're able to thread it through the surface layers of the skin and break that skin without causing yourself to bleed. Or you're able to exfoliate your skin without causing you to bleed because there's no blood vessels in those layers. Those layers are there for your protection from UV rays and from the external pollutions, and they're to waterproof the skin. The dermis is that layer beneath the epidermis. When we talk about creating change in the skin, we're talking about creating change in the dermis layer. The dermis contains your receptors for touch and heat. It's where the hair follicles, sebaceous glands and sweat glands are. The sebaceous glands being your oil glands, your blood vessels and your lymphatic vessels. Those vessels serve the epidermis as well. The blood vessels provide nourishment and waste toxin removal. When we are talking about communicating with that dermis layer, what we are talking about is the products penetrating to those bottom layers of the epidermis and sending responses to the areas in the dermis that we want them to change. So the hypodermis isn't actually a part of the skin, it lies just below the skin and it's connected to your dermis and your epidermis. This is a layer that is normally talked about when they're talking about skin, and it's just what keeps the skin attached to your bones and muscles. So in this subcutaneous layer, that's where your fibroblasts, which create your collagen elastin, are. These provide skin elasticity, they provide firmness, and they provide structure for the skin. Your macrophages, which are white blood cells which help fight off infection, and your adipocytes, which are adipose tissue, which is your fat cells. Your fat is in this layer as insulation, and 50% of the body's fat is contained in this subcutaneous level. We can encourage those fibroblasts to continue to produce good quality collagen elastin throughout our life. So say your collagen elastin are tightly packed. Over time, it gets a bit more stretchy. Say you're pulling the same hair bobbin every time, or you're pulling the same piece of elastic all day, every day. It eventually starts to fray and be weathered. That same thing happens with our collagen elastin. So when our collagen elastin has been used and our fibroblasts aren't producing top-notch collagen elastin anymore, and we're still using the collagen elastin, moving, talking anytime our muscles move, what happens is they start to fray, break down, and these little dips happen in the skin, and that's what we call a wrinkle, which is why we need to be interacting with the skin and communicating with the skin, telling the fibroblasts that it still needs to be producing that good quality collagen it produced when we were 20, when we're 60. So that's just a little bit of information on what the structure of the skin is like. Hopefully it will make understanding videos, I don't know if they've been complicated thus far, but understanding videos a little bit easier. And when I'm talking about communicating with the dermis or body treatments that claim to liquefy fat, we know we're talking about the subcutaneous level. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe and share with just one person. It will really, really help. It also makes me feel really happy. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. The skin's main region for also contains your